I think we're live here. Yes, we are. Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about how wokeness and woke globalist policies end up being pushed into big corporations, whether it be multinationals or just larger businesses. So anyway, I was at a lunch recently, and I was sitting next to just a recently retired CEO. Now, it's quite a big sort of company. It's multinational, I guess, not huge in multinational terms, but it's a pretty decent size. And so, given he's retired, I guess he was less circumspect with talking about his achievements. Now, I've been in business for a while, so it doesn't take long. Within a minute or two of listening to him, I realised that he had very little business expertise, something close to none in my view. He was just came from a well-to-do family and was shoehorned into big corporate CEO gigs and very well paid. $2.5 million a year. I mean, doing very nicely, thank you. So. So he was given he was gifted a gig, and for which he was comprehensively unqualified. But he sort of, in the social circles he moves in, and the people he knows, he's well connected into government and knows some heavyweight bureaucrats, all that sort of thing. It's really accepted in those sort of social circles that you will be gifted a prestigious, well-paid job, something that's well beyond your abilities. But in return, you're expected to do other favours. So, those people that helped you get the job there when their 18-year-old daughter finishes high school, then you're going to employ her as a consultant to travel the world, 5-star, and be very well paid to do it, and have limousines driving her here and there, and so you have to repay the favour and deliver favours when they're asked of you. So it's not simply a one-way street, and then you have to employ the friends of the people who helped you get the job, and you've got to spread some of the gravy around to various other undeserving people, but it doesn't. The issue is the guy got shoehorned in, but it was expected of him. He was given his instructions, which he approached with some sort of glee and gusto from the sound of it, where all the top management in the company were straight white males, and this particular company, or their board of directors, and their biggest customer, by the way, was a federal. I won't mention which one, but was a federal government. And it doesn't mean that all their revenues came there, but say 40% of their total revenues came from the federal government. So, or this particular federal government. So they kind of were beholden to the government to a very large extent, at least. And it would have been a brave CEO which would have told the government, "No, get lost. I'm not going to hire any black lesbians." So what's in it for the guy? He'd lose his job. He would be, outcast in those circles. So why doesn't he just go along with it, pick up a big fat salary, and do what he's told? And anyway, he's not qualified to get a job on his own merits. So why would he buck the system that's richly rewarding him for his ineptitude? But I mean, a nice enough guy. So his job is to, as he's put in here, is to get rid of white people. So because all the top management and the sub-top management, they're pretty much all straight white guys. A couple of women here and there, white women, just not good enough. We're in a different age here, and you got to get rid of those straight white guys. So. And that's what he did. As I say, he went about it with some relish, certainly the way he describes it, at least. I don't know whether he was just sort of touting, look how virtuous I am. I look at all the straight white guys I fired for no reason or something. I don't know, but he was he proudly claimed that he got rid of more than half the top management of the white men, replaced them with women, brown men, and brown women, and there were some departments where he claimed that he got rid of pretty much all the white people and replaced them with brown and black people, and so on. Now, the idea was he replacing competent white people with incompetent or much less competent black and brown people or minorities and so on. He didn't seem to really care. And this particular federal government also added all their international business to this firm. So this company was the proportion of their total business that was government increased from about 40% to probably, 55%, something like that. So while they were getting rid of all the straight white people, the competent ones, their business in total revenues actually increased. So it had the outward appearance, at least, of getting rid of all these white people was making the company do better, which of course wasn't the issue. Their business went down where they were competing, and it went up where they didn't have to compete because of all the extra government orders they were getting, which is a very typical scenario, by the way. Whenever you see a company announce that they've won huge government orders, you can just count 1, 2, 3, 4. You just count off the seconds almost until they start getting rid of the white guys and bringing in the black and brown people. And this was just another example of that. But he was very pleased with himself, skiding about it, about all the white guys he got rid of, and then when he left the company. More than half the senior management were non-straight white males, and he seemed very pleased about this. As if he'd achieved something worthwhile. Now, if you actually sort of, and I did a little bit of legwork after the lunch, if you actually look at the the real numbers, and you take away the extra government business that came in, they actually lost quite a bit of business where they had to compete. So clearly the loss of competent people caused them to lose business in the sectors where they had to compete the most. But this was I just wanted to sort of have this short vid to illustrate how it happened. So they put in some wealthy, not too wealthy, I guess, in this guy's case, but well-to-do enough, well-connected socialite into this firm as a CEO, which was manifestly unqualified to do, with the sole purpose of get rid of shitloads of white people who are doing a good job. And it's interesting too the way he talked about how they get rid of white people. I mean, some white people accept their fate and walk the plank and jump off into the shark-infested waters, and others realise it's an outrageous scam, and say, hey, I'll tie you guys up in court for years for false dismissal, and so they've got to pay those guys out. But he was proud to say that only a minority of guys called his bluff and wanted to get paid out, which means they were able to get rid of these competent white people for no reason, just ideological reason, nothing else. And also get away with not paying them out any sort of decent severance. And again, he appeared to think that this was a high-powered commercial achievement. So that goes to sort of illustrate, I think, the sequence of how it all happens, of how these incompetent CEOs get in there, and how many of them now are being tasked, and have been for some years, given the primary task: get rid of white people. And that's it. And I guess that leads me just to finishing off the story. When in Australia, at least, when the Western countries, generally in Australia, started importing masses of brown and black people, they didn't have the same sort of affirmative action, gender, race, quota type stuff that they do today. That gradually came in. And when these brown and black people came in from these third world countries, they couldn't hope to compete against the local workers. Couldn't even hope to. Sure, they could in the lowest of the low-paid jobs, the dishwashing and that sort of stuff. Sure, but even then, only because they could be more readily exploited than the white workers could be, who were much more aware of their workers' rights and their legal position and so on. as one franchise owner of a takeout food shop said, they only employ, they simply won't employ white people because what white people, if they screw them, will take them to court. Whereas the brown third world people, you can keep them on as trainees, unpaid trainees for 2 months. You're still not quite good enough. No, you have to put in another week before I'll be happy with you, so they can have all this free and very cheap labour and get away with it legally, because these people don't understand how to work it through the court system, whereas the white people do. So, um, but but other than those jobs, the brown and black people, with some rare examples, couldn't get a foothold in the employment market. And I've employed a lot of programmers, from India and the subcontinent generally, and with maybe one exception, they're all frauds of some degree or another. There was a Sikh guy who was pretty good, but all the rest were. They didn't have anywhere near the qualifications they claimed, and they were full of bluster and so on. But they didn't have those qualifications. So the only way that these people could get jobs was by quotas that demanded that the government and local employers would refuse jobs to qualified white people, particularly white men, in order to employ these third world brown and black people that could not under any circumstances compete in the local job market. They had to artificialise, if I can invent that word. They had to artificialise the employment market just to get these guys employed. Because without these people getting jobs, they wouldn't have come to the West or Australia in vast numbers, falling over themselves to get it. They're only falling over themselves to come to Australia because, well, the generous welfare benefits, but because the government policy, Western government policies, all run by straight white guys, by the way, dictates that you've got to give these people a job, and give them a job in preference to qualified white people. So that's how crazy things are now. But that's the both ends of that equation. If they didn't have those gender race quota things and lowering the bar and lowering the bar and lowering the bar for employment, these brown and black people would be coming to Australia and they'd be 90% unemployed, 95% unemployed, because they can't compete with the locals, and the only way they can compete is through quotas. And which is, of course, what's happening. But that doesn't achieve anything apart from making sure lower quality people get hired. It also means that qualified white people are not getting hired. And how can that be desirable in any economy? You've been with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for listening.